A while back I mentioned all those books I found with vintage cross-stitch patterns in a thrift store. Swiss cross-stitch patterns. How cool would that look knitted? I mean, you can take each and one of those stitches, cross stitches, as a knitting stitch and just include it in a sweater or socks or whatever. Look at this, so pretty. And I just see the endless possibilities I can use those for. You can use it for knitting, crocheting, cross-stitching obviously. You can use it with different techniques, beads, intarsia, color work. It's a whole world to explore, and I started a little bit. One subscriber of mine asked me very kindly that I should finally do this. She can barely wait for it, and I thought, yes, it's time. I started graphing myself this chart with this carnation, which is based on this carnation here. And my initial plan was to make a repeating pattern that I can use in a sweater. So I changed it a little. I added 2 leaves here and I added a stitch in the middle here, so my colors wouldn't take too long in one color, so I could switch up colors so my floats wouldn't get crazy in the back. I haven't gone to that project yet, so for this project I just use one flower. I came up with those 2 little swatches. One swatch is the intarsia. Back it looks like this. I decided to start with flat knitting, which is a little harder for color work like that. Later I will do things in the round, and I did the other swatch with beads. It's the same flower. How I knitted this intarsia I will show in another video because it's a little tricky, purling color work and doing intarsia at the same time. So I will dedicate one video just for that. Today I will show you how I added those beads on the stockinette stitch. There are many different techniques you can use to add on beads onto your knitted fabric. So let's see how I did that. Right now with the beads I'm in this row here, and it's knit from the purl side. I already added this bead, then 1 purl stitch, and now I have 4 beads coming. The purl stitch with the bead is a little tedious, but you get used to it. You just have to have the faith that it will happen. You go in with your needle and you keep your bead close here with the thumb. You wrap the yarn around and you push the bead through as you pull the yarn through. And now it's on the right spot. So if you turn the work around, you can see the bead is on the right leg of the knit stitch. And then another one. Pull that off. Then another one. Just wrap the yarn around and push the bead through with the yarn. And once you have that motion down, it's actually pretty easy. Although the net side is easier, you get used to the purl side. Now we did 3 beads, let's do the 4th one. There. And then I have 1 just empty purl. And then 4 other beads. So it's really easier if the bead is on top of the left needle. And just kind of keep it close with your thumb and then push it through with your thumb. And there is the 4th bead. And then I have 1 purl stitch and 1 bead again. And then 4 purl stitches. And now we come to the knit side. So first I have 5 knit stitches here, and then a bead, and then a knit stitch. Pulling more beads into my working area here. I actually didn't count how many beads I have to pull onto the thread. I just eyeballed it. I didn't feel like counting all those cross stitches here. I probably have some left over. If you would have a bigger garment, you just string beads, and then when you're out of beads, you have to break the yarn and string on more beads. And to get those small beads onto that yarn, I'm using this wire. Most sewing needles are too thick to get the beads through. Bend it, turn the front ends together. Sewing thread, go through that loop of my wire and make a knot. It will tighten up once you put the beads through. Then I put my yarn through the sewing thread loop. Now I can feed all those tiny little beads onto my wire needle. Pull them through to the yarn until I have enough beads to knit that whole carnation here. Let's do the knit side. If you work this in the round, you would just have to do knit side, which is pretty easy. The next bead doesn't have a beaded stitch on the bottom, so I don't even have to look where the position is of my last row with the bead. So I just pull it through and have the bead on the right leg of the stitch. Then I have an empty knit stitch, and then I have a whole row of beads on top of other beads. I make sure I enter the needle on top of this bead from the row below, so it stays on the right leg of the knit stitch, and then pull that next stitch in. Let's do that again. And again. Now to the purl side again, where we have only 4 beads, and that's the last row actually. Stop it here. These 2 stitches are the continuation if I add this flower on top. I have those 2 swatches now, and obviously I have a plan with those. They're not going to stay swatches. If I wouldn't have made something with them, I would have added either a seed stitch or some border so they can stay flat and don't roll. But I will do something with them, so stick around for that. This is how it looks in the back. It's very neat. And just imagine the possibilities with this. You can do any pattern in these books with beads, and then not just stay with one color. You can change the colors. You can make fancy stuff. I could have made the stem another color than the actual flower. Make borders. This is pixel art, and you can do it with different beads, different images. You don't have to just take cross-stitch patterns. You can take photographs, whatever. If you, for example, would want to make a sweater with beads, let's say the top of the sweater is top-down sweater, and the top of the sweater has a ornament with beads all around, what you have to consider is that it is relatively heavy. It's glass beads. It might turn out to be a pretty heavy sweater. I weighted those 2 swatches. This swatch, which is just yarn, is 2.5 grams. And this with the beads, it's 6 grams. 2.5 grams, 6 grams. So you can imagine a whole sweater will be very heavy. If you add some beads on bottom of the sweater, it might give a nice drape. Also, depending on what fiber you use for the fabric, it might add some luxurious touches. There are many different techniques you can use to add on beads onto your knitted fabric. If the beads are bigger, I use another technique. I use a knitted row in between each row of beads. When I come to a bead, I actually purl the stitch. So the bead will hang on one of those purl bows, but I'll show that another time. Also, you could switch the whole thing around and do the beads just on the purl side. If you would go completely crazy, you could actually add a bead in the back and the front, make the whole thing even heavier, but have both sides look nice. Maybe somebody wants to experiment with that. I keep working on this idea. Bubble stitches, lace, mosaic stitch, which is a little tricky. I have to experiment more with that. I plan on doing the slip stitch combined with a drop stitch thing, which is not quite mosaic. And I have to figure it out first, but I will show it to you when I have satisfying results. If any of you has another idea on how to use cross-stitch pattern as color work or as some kind of textured stitch, let me know in the comments. I'm sure there are ideas I can't think of right now, so I would be very excited if you had an idea for that. And check back soon for more cross-stitch converting into knitting adventures. Oh, and also, I mean, it doesn't end with knitting. You can do crocheting, you know. I'm very excited to dive into that world of cross-stitch, bead, knitting, crocheting. So thank you so much for watching, and I see you soon, hopefully.